So this being our introductory session, yes, there's a certificate with RCM with RCM seal, of course. There are people who are even doing this course for the second time, so that is assured. Now, when we talk about ITAX, this is a short course that talks about practical taxation. Here we'll be dealing with practical taxation. The basics that you learned in intermediate taxation, that is basically taxation and public finance, and the bit that you did in advanced taxation, that is in advanced level of CPA. And apart from that, even to members who have not done CPA and they are so much interested in taxation, this is practical taxation. Everything that we'll be doing here, we'll be doing it practically from the ITAX perspective. Now, ITAX is basically the system that Kenya Revenue Authority uses. It's a web-based application that Kenya Revenue Authority uses to administer domestic taxes. So remember, for Kenya Revenue Authority, the two main taxes that are being collected, we have the domestic taxes. Then apart from that, we also have the customs, we have the customs duties. Now, when you talk about customs administration, Kenya Revenue Authority administers customs through what we call ICMS. But for domestic taxes are administered via what we call ITAX. ITAX is a web-based application. All you need is a computer or a machine that is connected to internet, or basically maybe a tablet or a mobile phone, or even a computer or an iPad that is connected to the internet. Then you simply come to your browser and you type the words ITAX, just like that, without adding anything. You just type the keywords ITAX. When you are able to search, or when you are able to hit the search button on your keyboard, you will be able to get the web-based application. This is the web-based application we call ITAX. It's not app-based. By app-based, I mean it is not something that you can be able to download from Google Play Store. You have to access it through the internet via a browser like this. For example, like Chrome, if you have Chrome, if you have Mozilla, etc. These are the basics that you know. Now, in this ITAX, what will we be handling in the course of our sessions? The very first thing that we'll be handling in the course of our sessions, I'll be able to take you through PIN registration. If you look at this interface that I'm projecting here, members, this is the interface that we'll be interacting most of the time with. Anytime I tell you go to ITAX, simply open a blank page within your browser, open a new page or a new tab within your browser, and just type the words ITAX like that. Then once you've been able to type the words ITAX and you are able to search, just go directly to ITAX KRA. Or basically you can still be able to type www.itax.kra.go.ke. It will still be able to bring to you the same web page. So this is the ITAX web page. This is not a KRA web page. KRA web page looks like this. You just type KRA. If you want to go to KRA home and be able to see some of maybe about downloads, information about taxes, then you just type KRA and you search. If you look at these two websites, they are two different. This one is www.kra.go.ke. This other one is itax.kra.go.ke. So this is the one we'll be interacting with most of the time, but also in conjunction with this KRA website, where we'll be using it basically to be able to look for and also to be able to download return templates like VAT returns when we will be revising, or when basically we'll be going through some of the basics of VAT. Then we'll also be able to file a VAT return. We'll be able to use this search window here in the KRA home website a lot. For example, if you want to search for the VAT return, we'll simply be able to type the words VAT3 like this, and we'll be able to search so that the system can be able to bring us the latest what? The system can be able to bring us the latest VAT, the latest VAT return, which we can be able to download from one of these listed links. Now, this is the one that we'll be interacting with the most, the ITAX portal. I have said again that the ITAX portal is a web-based solution. It's not an app-based solution. You cannot go to your Google Play Store and download the ITAX app. Even if it is not there, most certainly you will not be able to perform most of the functions with it, like filing of the returns, etc., etc. So this being the most important interface that we'll be dealing with, there are two things once you reach this interface. One, if you're already a registered taxpayer with the Kenya Revenue Authority, remember, a taxpayer we can have either an individual taxpayer, or number two, we can have a taxpayer who is an individual. I don't know whether you can give me examples of non-individual taxpayers. Examples of non-individual taxpayers that you can think of, because individual is just a natural person like you and me. So in the company, for example, that is one. Number two, we can have which other one? Apart from companies, we can have kila mtu anaandika kampuni, kila mtu anaandika company, kila mtu anaandika company. Partnership, thank you. Apart from partnership, we can also have what? We can also have corporations, okay, more of the same. State departments, societies, circles, yes. So societies, that is where the likes of churches, yeah, the service firms, Karoti, like we have the audit firms, the legal firms. Even the legal firms are service firms. Yes, we can also have the insurance firms because, yes, we can have the NGOs, we can have the clubs, etc., etc., etc. So basically, when we talk about this, you see this window here. I hope you can be able to see the whole of this page that I'm displaying. You see this box here, which allows you to type. If you try to type something, you will be able to see that something is being written as you type. Now, this window, this box here, I don't know whether I can call it a box or this field here, it allows only a taxpayer who already has a KRA PIN. So if you have a KRA PIN, then you can be able to type it here. You can be able to type your KRA PIN here. Then it will be able to ask you for what? It will be able to ask you for what we call a password. Then you are able to log in. That is if you already have a PIN. If you've already registered as a taxpayer, and I've said, as a taxpayer, we can either have, number one, an individual taxpayer, or number two, we can have a taxpayer who is an individual. Now, for non-individuals, I'll be able to show you how to register an individual for a PIN. Somebody who has never registered for a KRA PIN. Number two, I'll also be able to show you how to register an individual. For example, a church, for example, a chama, for example, a self-help group, for example, an organization which is established as a charitable institution. Sile tulisoma kwa advanced taxation, for example, a charitable institution that is catering for the welfare of children, a charitable institution that is catering for the welfare of the elderly, for example. We'll be able to see how we can be able to register them for a KRA PIN. Now, only and only if you have a KRA PIN is when you can use this field here. Otherwise, if you don't have a KRA PIN, then you have to come to this field here, where the system is asking you, do you want to apply for a PIN? Do you want to apply for a PIN? So this is for new PIN registration. Somebody whose ID has never been submitted to KRA for issuance of a PIN, or a company whose registration details have never been submitted to KRA for PIN registration, will be able to use this window here. If you click it, for example, let's just see what happens, because most of this we'll still be able to do tomorrow practically when we officially kickstart our class. Now, you will be asked which kind of taxpayer do you want to register. Do you want to register an individual taxpayer, or do you want to register an individual taxpayer? Should you click individual taxpayer, Then you will come here and choose the mode of registration here. Mostly, we used to have a form which ulikuwa unajaza, alafu ukishajaza una upload, but hiyo right now ilitolewa, it's a thing of the past. So all registrations for a new PIN are done via online form. So you will choose the online form, then you will click next. Once you click next, then the next thing that this system will be asking you, you can see the system will populate for you 4 different tabs. We have the basic information tab. We have the obligation details tab B. Then we have the source of income tab C. Then we have the agent details tab E. Let me just repeat that again for a member maybe who was just joined. You go to your browser like this, a new one like this, then you just type the words ITAX. When you type the words ITAX without anything, just simple words, ITAX, then you click enter. When you click enter, you will be able to be directed to the ITAX portal. Now, ITAX portal is not an app-based portal. It's not an app-based solution, meaning you cannot find it in Google Play Store. You have to use a browser, and your computer or your gadget has to be connected to the internet. So if you already have a PIN, like for example, me already have a PIN, I can simply be able to type my PIN here. Like mine is A00, kama hujashikanisha yako ni shida. Mine is usually A00816 358 9A. That is my PIN, my personal PIN. You will be able to click continue. Then if you have a password, you can be able to key in the password here so that you can be able to log in. Like, I don't know whether I remember mine. Let me try. Let me try. We see. We see. If it refuses, I'll try another one. Yes, imekata. So I can be able to try another one that I remember. If I don't remember, I can be able to reset. I can be able to reset if I don't remember. If I don't remember, I can be able to reset this later on. I can be able to set this one later on. So if you have your password, you can be able to log in. Now, if you don't have your password, then it forces you to come to this other option. It forces you to come to this other option where you just have to register as a taxpayer. You have to register as a new taxpayer who has never been registered before. You come to this option here of do you want to apply for a PIN? Then new PIN registration. You will click here as the system is directing you. Once you click here, you will choose the type of taxpayer that you want to register. Do you want to register a natural person in the name of an individual, a natural breathing human being, like in the name of an individual, or do you want to register a company? It can be private, it can be a public, or it can even be a society, or it can even be, for example, maybe an NGO. NGO still registered as a society. Now, when you pick individual, for example, then the mode of registration you will pick online. The mode of registration you will pick online. Apart from that, so you can click next. When you click next, I hope you are able to see these 4 tabs. These are the most important tabs that are used for registration. Why? Because in the first tab, the system wants you to specify what is the kind of citizenship of the natural person you want to register. The kind of citizenship. What kind of citizenship? What's the nature of the citizenship that this person who wants to register for a KRA PIN holds? Number 1, are they a Kenyan? And if you are a Kenyan, what is required of you is very simple. You simply need your national ID number and your date of birth. The same way that you are given those by the registrar, the National Registration Bureau. So you will come here and key in your national ID number and your date of birth. All these other information like your name, your first name, your middle name, your last name, your date of birth. Your date of birth will pick directly from what you key in here. So once your date of birth and your national ID number are matching, because remember, these two categories of information are read directly from the place where you took, the people who gave you ID, that is the National registration. The civil, is it civil registration? Mnatoanga ID huwa mnatoa wapi? Who gives you your IDs? What's the source of your IDs? National ID. Huwa mnatoa wapi? Where do you get your IDs from? National IDs. What is the source of? No, si Huduma. Huduma don't process. Who processes our national IDs? Registration of civil registrar. Yes. So you get your, so the two, you see these two, national ID number and date of birth. These two information are picked directly from the civil registrar. The data that you supplied and the data that is reading on your ID, because ITAX is linked with the system that the civil registrar is using, The two systems are basically linked. So the moment you key an ID number here, and you come here and key a date of birth, then automatically all this information, your national ID, your individual data in terms of your first name, middle name, last name, and also your sex, and also your place of birth and marital status, though hiyo si sana, those ones will auto-populate. The other details that will also populate are the details of your father. Then members again, the other details that will also auto-populate are the particulars of your mother. Then also, the other details that will also auto-populate are the particulars of your spouse. Those ones will also auto-populate automatically. You can't key them one by one. They will auto-populate automatically. The particulars of your father, the particulars of your mother, and the particulars of your spouse. Those ones will auto-populate. Are we together, members? Are we together? We'll do this practically tomorrow. Don't worry. We'll do this practically. We'll be able to do this practically. This just being an introduction, we'll do this practically tomorrow. Yes. So after you've been able to key that, now where you will start keying your details are your principal physical address, like where you live. Then also your principal postal address. You need a postal address. So this one for individuals is not really necessary. Then your principal contact details. What is your phone number? What is your email? What is your phone number? What is your email? Ukimaliza hizo class, then you will go to tab B or sheet B here. So sheet A is for your personal information, your most basic information in terms of who are you, where do you live, what are your phone numbers, and apart from that, what are the details of your parents? That is what you need in basic information. Who are you? When were you born? Details of who is your father, who is your mother, who is your spouse. Then again, where do you live and what are your contacts? Then you go to B. When you go to B, in B here, now here is where you choose an obligation. For example, if you are an individual and you are employed, kama wewe ni individual and you are employed, you are basically employed, then your obligation will be the first one that I have here, income tax resident. Income tax resident. Remember, it depends with the information you fed under citizenship. The moment you choose Kenyan, the moment you choose that you are a Kenyan, itakuitisha ID. So your national ID will be your registration, your key registration document. So the moment you choose that you are a Kenyan, your citizenship is Kenyan, then obligation here, you'll be required to be registered for income tax resident. You are a resident in Kenya for tax purposes, income tax resident, not non-resident. You will be able to choose the date from which you want to register for this obligation. The date can only be a date prior to today or today's date. It can't be a future date. It can only be a day today or a prior date and not a future date. Let's see if somebody chooses another type of citizenship. Now, if you choose non-Kenyan, what does it mean? Under what circumstances do we say that somebody, or what factors do you consider to tell that somebody is a non-Kenyan resident? Non-Kenyan resident. Who ni mtu, How do you describe a non-Kenyan resident? Si Mkenya lakini anakaa wapi? Si Mkenya lakini anakaa wapi? They stay where? They are not Kenyans, yes. They are not Kenyan. They are not Kenyans, but they stay like a foreigner living in Kenya. A foreigner who has been living in Kenya. A foreigner who has been living in Kenya. A foreigner, no. A foreigner, hiyo ni tofauti karoti. Non-resident ni kitu ingine tofauti. Huyu ni foreigner, lakini don't confuse the terms resident and being a foreigner. Yes? Huyu si Mkenya, ni foreigner ndio. Ako na citizenship ya mahali kwingine, kama for example ni USA, a USA citizen for example. But they're living in Kenya. Why would they be living in Kenya? Maybe because of what? Because of, apart from job, what else can make somebody to stay in our country apart from kazi? What else? What else can make somebody to stay in our country? Yes? What else? War, marriage, tourism, investment, visiting, marriage. Yes? Yes? Study. Anasoma Kenya. Political. Yes? Vacation. Lakini vacation hiyo utakuwa umekaa sana Brian. Utakuwa umekaa sana. Yes. So if you choose non-Kenyan resident, the obligation is still what? Income tax resident. Why do you think so? Why do you think the obligation does not change to income tax non-resident? Why? Why do you think if I choose non-Kenyan resident, the obligation still remains to be income tax resident? And it does not go to income tax non-resident. Remember, this person is not a citizen of Kenya. They are only staying in Kenya. Why do you think the obligation? Because you are actually staying in Kenya. You remember the principle of 183 days? Yes? Remember the principle of 183 days? The principle of 183 days. You remember it? You are already a resident. Yes? Unakaa Kenya. Hata kama wewe si Mkenya, lakini unakaa wapi? Unakaa Kenya because of work or because of investments. So the obligation that a non-Kenyan resident will be given is not income tax non-resident, but income tax resident, because probably they are a foreigner, but they're also paying taxes in Kenya because they are earning their income where? Their employment income is being accrued where? Is being accrued in Kenya. So a non-Kenyan resident will always be given the obligation of what? The obligation of income tax resident. Now, another thing you need to know about non-Kenyan resident, because some of these things these are practical things which people will always ask you. A non-Kenyan resident will only be given a KRA PIN on an alien ID. Have you ever seen an alien ID? Have you ever seen an alien ID? Yes, the same person issuing it is the one issuing us. Mwenye anatupea tu ndiye anawapea bado. Alien ID hamjaiona, inakaa tu kama yetu. Niko na moja lakini because of data privacy and everything, it's a bit, but I'll show you. I'll be able to find a way to show you how it looks like tomorrow. Nitawaonyesha so that you see how we use it for registration. Alien ID. They need an alien ID. Hata hapa, ukijaribu kuweka Kenya na ID number hapa itaenda through. Nasikia masi, it won't go through. If you put our national, unaona hata vile imeandikwa alien identity number. Si nikichagua hii ya Kenyan, unaona ina change na niitisha national ID number. But hii ingine inaniitisha nini? Alien what? Alien ID what? Alien identity number. So for wale wazungu wenye wanakaa Kenya because they earn their living in Kenya or they have investment in Kenya and they're not citizens maybe by birth etc., then they have what we call an alien ID. Inakaa tu kama yetu. Even the appearance ni kama yetu, lakini the number is a bit funny. You'll be able to see it. Good. Aya. So our non-Kenyan residents, they will register for income tax resident. Good. Come to this other one. Non-Kenyan non-resident. Hii inamaanisha nini? This is the other category of citizenship. Msidhani ati ni sisi pekee huwa tuna register KRA PIN, hapana. even foreigners, even foreigners, even foreigners. Now, what does this mean? Non-Kenyan, non-resident. What does it mean? This is a foreigner who does not do what? They don't stay where? Wanakujanga tu Kenya mara moja, maybe because they have an investment. They're not staying in Kenya. That's it, Brian. They're not staying in Kenya. So that is non-Kenyan, non-resident. They are not staying in Kenya. They don't have like a permanent home in Kenya. And apart from that, maybe they have not been in Kenya for those periods that are mentioned. Now, if you go to non-Kenyan, non-resident, utaitishwa nini? Look at it. Unaitishwa nini? Can you see what you are being asked to give? Are you seeing what you are being asked to give? Are you asked what you are being asked to give for you to be registered for a KRA pin? Can you see it? Somebody who has spotted it? Somebody who has spotted it from my screen? Somebody who has spotted it. What is being required? What is being required? We require, yes, we require a passport number. We require a passport number. So if you have a mzungu who is in Kenya and there's some income they want to earn and they want a KRA pin very, very fast, all we need is what? All we need is turnover tax wekesa. All we need is their what? All we need is we need their passport number and the date of expiry of that passport. Passport number and the date of expiry of that passport. Hizo details zote zitajijaza automatically and the issuing country ni nchi gani imepeana hiyo passport. How does one become a non-Kenyan, non-resident, yet is not a resident? Can somebody answer Dennis that question? Dennis has asked a very good question. Members, let's look at the chat box. Dennis is asking a very nice question here. Yes, somebody who can answer that. How does one become a non-Kenyan, non-resident, yet is not a resident? The principle of residence. The principle of residence. Dennis, just read the principle of residence. The principle of residence, there are circumstances, there are scenarios under which we can say somebody is a Kenyan resident for tax purposes. Residence does not mean uko na nyumba Kenya, hapana, ama unakaa kwa hoteli, hapana. For tax purposes, residence means something else. There's a cap to who we call a resident, and there's a cap to who we don't call a resident for taxation purposes. The 183 days principle, you can be able to even Google that and find more about that. It's available online. Now, for a non-Kenyan non-resident, you need what? You need, here now, you can see the income tax resident is grayed out. Hata ukijaribu kuselect haiendi through. Turnover tax, that is, it means turnover tax in full. There is a threshold to that turnover tax. It's at the rate of 3% per month for a turnover of between 1 million to I think around 25 million, if I'm not wrong. Yes, you can be able to read more of it on the KRA website. I'll show you where to see it. Takuonyesha mahali utaipata so that you can read more about it. Now, you can see that when we choose non-Kenyan, non-resident, you can see here that I can no longer choose this obligation of income tax resident because I'm not a resident for tax purposes. I'm not a resident for tax purposes, but I can be able to go for which option? Income tax, non-resident, income tax, non-resident, income tax, non-resident. Now the two, there's a slight difference between the two. And the most obvious one, most of the deductions that you will be able to enjoy as a resident, for example, the deductions to do with pension, the deductions to do with the owner-occupier interest, the deductions to do with the NSSF, NHIF. Most of those deductions that we enjoy as residents, this person will not be able to enjoy. This person who is a non-resident for tax purposes. With them, their salary, whatever they earned or whatever income they have gotten, will be taxed directly by the prevailing tax rate. So these are some of the things that we'll be able to learn and do practically tomorrow. Then you go to source of income. Now, hapa kwa source of income, kuna tu tatu peke yake. That is if we are registering an individual. If we are registering an individual, then kuna tu tatu peke yake. You and me, you are either in employment, so yes or no. The moment you click yes, the system will ask you who is your employer. You will key in your employer here. Ni nani amekuajiri kazi? Ni nani amekuajiri kazi? Who has employed you? Who has employed you? You will be able to key in the PIN of your employer here. Kama hauko kwa employment, then either uko na rent or tax. Uko na manyumba mahali zinakupea nini? Zinakupea rent kila mwezi. So you will come here and choose rental income, where you will go with the rental income bit. You will come and tell KRA, hapana, me I'm not employed, but I have what? I have rental properties somewhere. So you will choose rental income. Alafu utakuja uambie KRA, give us the details of your house. Kama una rental income, then utasema tu no, utakuja kwa hii ya tatu tunaita business income, because ordinarily these are the sources of income that you can have. Either you have employment income, you as an individual, or you have rental income, you as an individual, or you have business income, you as an individual, or to even make it better, the taxman, that's the Kenya Revenue Authority, loves it even more when you have both the three. Unakuja tu hapa unaweka yes, unaweka yes, unaweka yes, uko na zote. For example, let me give you a good scenario. So if you have all of them, you will declare all of them. But kama una zote, for example, uko na business income tu peke yake, maybe you are a lady, you have a very nice salon, you are a gentleman, you have a very nice barber shop, or you have a kiosk, you have a shop, in the plot, or maybe you have a gym somewhere. Yeah, you have a gym, or basically maybe you have an electronic shop somewhere. You have to come here and say, yes, I have business income. Then you key in the single business registration details here, because maybe it is a sole what? It's a sole proprietorship. So you'll come here and key in the details of your sole proprietorship here. What is the registration number? When did you start business? When was your business registered? What is your business name? Your business is located where? And do you have additional place of business? Is your business vertible or not? Which number can we reach you with in case we want to ask questions? What is your principal email address? So that you can add your business here. So mwenye hajaongeza biashara yake, I'll teach you how to add your business tomorrow. Now, for agents, this is when maybe you are incapacitated, or mostly applicable to non-residents, those who don't live within the country. You need a tax agent. So if you are working for a tax firm or a tax agent and you have clients, in each of those clients' websites, in ITAX portals, you need to declare your details here as the tax agent. So that if you go to KRA, you don't have problems with the KRA. Unasema mimi ni agent wa huyu, KRA wanasema hatukujui because we can't see you in the system. So if you are using a tax agent to file your returns, to look for your tax compliance certificate, to look for things to do with the refunds from KRA, to look for things to do with the maybe a waiver, amnesty, etc. You need to declare the details of your tax agent here. What is his KRA PIN? Name na hizo zingine zitajieka. Umemuauthorize kutoka lini ndio akuwe akishughulikia maneno yako ya KRA. Authorization date, since when have you authorized that person? Then umemuauthorize mpaka lini? Because somebody can go to KRA to act on your behalf, kumbe the period under which you authorized them has expired. So that is the details that you declare here, you add and you submit, most of which we'll be able to do practically tomorrow. Now that is for individuals. Now, as I come to an end, because this was just an introductory session, show you some of the things we'll be handling. Now, for non-individuals, the process is the same. The process is the same. You'll just come here to new PIN registration. You click it. Once you've clicked it, you will choose here, not individual now, but you will be choosing non-individual. Unachukua non-individual. Then you do the registration via online form. You click next. Once you click next, I want you to see what has changed in the tabs that we have. What has changed in the tabs that we have? It's only one thing. It is tab what? Tab D. Can you see tab D? Tab D, the other side we had the source of what? We had the source of income. Tab D sasa hapa tuko na directors or associates because we are dealing with an individual. Now, before you commence registration of an individual, you need to tell us which non-individual are you registering among these. Are you registering a company? Are you registering an NGO? Are you registering an international organization? Are you registering a diplomatic organization? Are you registering a government institution, or are you registering others? Hapa kwa others, ukiklik, hapa ndio utakuja kupata club, society or association. Hapa ndio utapata partnership. Hapa ndio utapata government schools. Did you know government schools have KRA pin? Mlijua? Do you know government schools have KRA pins? Why do you think somebody is asking, why should they have KRA pins? Somebody just answer that. Why should government schools have KRA pins? Like Starehe Boys Center. Yes. Starehe Boys Center, they have a KRA pin. Wanafanya nini? Why? Why do they have a KRA pin? Why do they have a KRA pin? Why do they have a KRA pin? Government schools, yes. Ndio hii hapa. Government schools have KRA pin. They should have a KRA pin. Why? For pay purposes. Apart from that, for VAT. Ama mjui wanalipanga VAT. Do you know they pay VAT? Don't you know they pay VAT? Yes, they do. Yes, they pay VAT. They pay VAT. Yes, we'll be able to learn about that. Now, here, hapa kwa others, hapa kwa the business type that you are registering, hapa ndio bado unapata kwa others, hapa ndio bado unapata club, society and association. Hapa kwa club, society and association, hapa ndio tuna register kanisa. Yes, if you want to open a church should have a KRA pin. Hapa ndio tuna register chama. Hapa ndio tuna register the self-help group. Hapa ndio tuna register merry-go-rounds. Hapa ndio tuna register members clubs. Hapa ndio bado tuna register nini? Here is where we still register a cooperative society. Ile tulisoma juzi na watu wa advanced taxation. Hapa ndio bado una register. What else can you register here? What else falls under the category of societies? Zile za kina Tuoli ziko hapa. Yes. Here is where you register what? What else can we register here? All those members club, even Kenya Association of Manufacturers is registered under that. Then we have estates. Estates ni za watu wamekufa. Do you know what an estate is? You know what an estate is? Estate. Property of somebody who has passed on. That is supposed to be administered via a will. Tulisoma hiyo na watu advanced pia. Estates. Then private trusts, corporate trusts, family trusts, political party kama ODM, UDA, they are registered here under others. Trade union, zote, they are registered under others. Good. Then we have company. So company, private schools. Now, somebody has asked a very good question. Where will we register a private company? Nataka mtu anijibu. Where will we register private company? Under which heading? 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 Most of the private schools are registered as private companies. Unakuja tu hapa kwa company and you register this, as a private company. Most of them are registered as private what? As private company. They are registered as private company. They are registered as private company. Ndio maana hapo ukikuja kwa others, unapata government school. Hapa mbona hujapata private school? It's because most of the private schools are required to be registered as a private company. So with them, they fall here under company. Good. We can also have all the other institutions will be able to show that. Good. Now, as I come to an end, that is basically mostly we'll be doing introduction tomorrow, because we will be doing registration tomorrow, because we have to register a taxpayer first before we file their return. We have to know how to register a taxpayer first. It's when we can log into their profile and file for them a return. Otherwise, ITAX is just empty without a taxpayer and without their returns, because otherwise, whatever is even in the ledgers is borrowed from the returns that we will be filing with you. So we'll be able to file individual returns. Once we create a PIN for an individual tomorrow, we'll be able to file a return for an individual. Yes, we'll be able to file a return for an individual tomorrow. Then we'll also be able to take care of the statutory deductions such as NSSF, NHIF, affordable housing levy. How do we incorporate them into an individual return? After that, we'll also be able to move to pay as you earn. Yes, pay as you earn. How do we incorporate affordable housing levy in a pay as you earn return? NSSF, NHIF. How do we even file return for a pay return for a disabled employee, a pay return for a primary employee, a secondary employee, a pay return for an unresident employee, for example, that we already talked of. How do we file a return for them? After that, we'll also move to partnership returns. How do we file a partnership returns and even make up or come up with a location table for them, their location table for a partnership? How do we come up with a location table for a partnership in ITAX? And how do we file a partnership return? Then we'll also be able to do company returns. Company returns will follow immediately after partnership return. How do we file a company return? When you are given the audited financial statements, including the investment allowances, how do we file for them in a return and upload in ITAX? Then after that, we'll also move to VAT, including CSV. CSV is for large data. For example, if you have data going up to maybe 5,000 records, how do you, for example, the supermarkets, they have huge data. How do we incorporate them in the VAT return? You can't start keying them one by one. You have to prepare what we call a CSV. So how do we upload a CSV in a VAT return and also maybe also in a pay return? Then after we are done with the main categories of returns, we'll go to the simplified returns like MRI. MRI is for residential apartments. Then we'll also go to withholding taxes. How do we file withholding taxes? For example, kama mtu amekufanyia kazi, you've invited mwalimu here to come and train your account staff on return filing and ITAX operations. You pay mwalimu here like around 20,000 for 4 hours. How do you withhold tax on that 20,000 or on that 30,000? We'll talk about that. Then after we are done with all the returns, because I told you ITAX is just a blank web page without data. It has to read the data that has been fed into it. So after all that, we'll be able to go through the various ITAX modules. For example, if KRA owes you money, how do you apply for a refund? How do you make tax payments once you file the return? Because the way ITAX is configured, you have to file a return first is when you make payment. So once you file the returns that we'll be able to file here, is zote, how do you make payment in full or in part? Then, how do you apply for a payment plan? In case you have a KRA debt, una apply payment plan aje kwa ITAX. Then tax amnesty, hii yenye ina expire June. How do you apply for it? Because we only have like 2 months left. Then how do you amend your basic information such as your contacts, your email, you've forgotten your KRA PIN, you've forgotten your KRA password, how do you retrieve them, etc, etc, will be able to handle that. How do you generate your tax compliance certificate? You are going for a job, you want to apply for a tender, etc, etc. How do you generate your tax compliance certificate? And in case it is not able to generate automatically, what do you do? Then how do you add an obligation to your PIN? For example, you already have a PIN and unataka maybe obligation kama VAT, ama unataka obligation kama income, kama pay, for example, you don't have them currently, but you want them to be added to your PIN. How do you add an obligation like VAT to an existing Kenya Revenue Authority PIN? So that's an outline of what we'll be handling in the course of tomorrow all the way to next weekend. That is 6 sessions that we shall handle so that we can be able to do well when it comes to practical taxation. This is what practical taxation is about. And I'm so happy that we've been able to join this free webinar so that at least even before you subscribe, somebody can be able to do what? Somebody can be able to know exactly what they are what they are subscribing for and what actually will be offered. Apart from that, I also offer you an opportunity in case there is something extra you'd like us to do. Please state it in the chat box now as I write for you our number that you can call so that maybe you can join us before we begin our classes tomorrow. What would you like Mwalimu to tackle apart from what I have showed you here? Because maybe you also have your expectations. Please enumerate your expectations. Enumerate your expectations. Enumerate your expectations. Enumerate your expectations. The timetable has been shared in the groups, in our various WhatsApp groups and Facebook. Yeah, there will be a certificate, of course. And at the end, we'll have a small assessment. It's not really punitive, and the certificate is not really based on it. You just have a small assessment at the end of it all, just to find out if we've been able to get something out of it. The classes will be recorded, of course, and shared with you for a while. Yes, all the classes are always recorded. We'll be able to record we'll be able to record the classes. We'll be able to record the classes, all of them. Withholding VAT from tax agents, I'll be able to try and get a pin from a tax agent who is registered for who is a withholding agent, who is a withholding VAT agent, so that we can be able to see how we can go through it practically, that is. Recordings, once the classes are over, that should be within 2 to 3 hours, because they are converted within 2 to 3 hours, because they have to be converted first, is when they are uploaded in the system so that you can be able to access. What happens in the case the returns are not balancing, we'll be able to see that practically, no problem. Customs, no. Customs is not ITAX. Customs is ICMS. Now, for e-teams, I wish you could be able to state what you would like Mwalimu to cover, because most of us are just typing e-teams. What you'd like to be covered, of course. When we'll be doing the VAT returns, we'll be doing the auto-populated ones via e-teams. We'll be able to do the auto-populated VAT returns, which contains data transmitted by e-teams to the various traders. I'll be able to show you that. But everything, when you talk about everything in e-teams, I wish you would be able to enumerate, especially the areas you would like us to talk about in terms of e-teams. Yes, in terms of e-teams, because e-teams and ITAX, those are two totally different systems. E-teams just transmits data to ITAX, but ITAX and e-teams, those are two different systems altogether. We'll be able to look at the part where e-teams comes in when it comes to ITAX, but more about e-teams in terms of onboarding e-teams, in terms of what is required for you to onboard e-teams and how to generate an invoice via e-teams. That's a totally different system altogether, which may be offered differently. Good. So the recordings will be available, no problem. Gratuity and lump sum, I've already taken that karaoke. We'll be able to, when we'll be doing pay returns, make sure you are able to remind Mwalimu so that you can be able to do something. You can be able to have a scenario where somebody was paid a gratuity. Otherwise, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I intend to stop there. For members who have not joined us, we start officially tomorrow. For members who have not joined us, kindly join us. The class will be as practical as possible. Call that number so that you can be able to have shared it with an individual again. Call this number so that you can be able to join us before we begin our classes tomorrow. The timetables are available in the various WhatsApp groups and even in Facebook, so that we can be able to kickstart this tomorrow at the allocated time in the timetable. Otherwise, thank you and have a good night. We appreciate you joining. till tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, members. I've shared the contact. You can call that contact in case you need to join. For RCM continuing students, it's 18. The amount is 18. Then for the new students, the non-RCM students, the charges are 3,500. So you can be able to see the flyer for more information and call the number to join. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, Sami. Welcome, Sami. Welcome, Dennis. Please subscribe so that we can start tomorrow officially. In case you've not subscribed, kindly subscribe. The contact I've posted in the chat box. I've posted the contact in the chat box. 0719 525,000. 0719 525,000.